Hey guys, Philip here from Philly for Decoding, and in this video I'm going to walk through the solution and work out the problem for the exercise tracker project as part of the backend development and APIs projects from FreeCodeCamp. First thing is to understand what we actually have to build. We have to replicate this exercise tracker application that they've built. So basically, you can create a user, post a bunch of exercises that you've done, and then you can call a GET request on your user ID, and it'll give you a log of all of the exercises that you've been doing. So it's essentially an exercise tracker. So let's show how it works. Let's just do this. Okay, so it's now created a user for me. And now let's post some exercises. So let's say biceps, 30 minutes. And we did it, and the date is optional. So we can, actually I think the date is required to post an exercise. So we'll say 2023. Okay, so posted the exercise, and now let's try and return our exercise. Let's try and get the log of our exercises. Logs, and we'll just do that. Okay, so I have one exercise, and it's biceps for 30 minutes on January 1st. Okay, so let's get started and start building this out. All right, so create a new replit. We're good to go here. Now let's just get some housekeeping stuff out of the way. We're gonna need the body parser in order to get the post, to parse the post request. We're also going to need to set up the database. So we want to do that as well. Okay, and we're gonna now connect to the database, and we're gonna need to create an environment variable with our database connection info. So that's that, and you can get this from your Mongo database user panel under database access. Okay, and now we add this, and let's just make sure all of that is running. Okay, it looks like it's working. So now let's create the first route. So the first thing we need to do is to be able to create a new user. Okay, so you can post to API/users with form data username to create a new user, and the user should look like this. So it just has a username. Okay, so first of all, let's create the post route for creating a user. So app.post API/users. Okay, let's just log, or let's just reply with the with the rec dot body. Yeah. Do we have the body parser? We don't have the body parser. That would probably be why it is not working. Okay, so let's add the body parser, and now let's try that again. Okay, cool. So the request that we send is just username. And so, okay, that's good. So what we need is we need to create a user schema to store all of this users. And that schema is just going to have a username parameter. So let's do this. Okay, so the schema is going to have a username, as you would expect, and it's a type of string, and it is required. And you know, we could make other restrictions, like it has to be unique and not null and so on, but we'll just use that for now. Okay, and we create a model based on this schema so that we can easily create users. Okay, so that should be the setup. Now, we're going to need to extract the username. And we're going to create a new user model. From that username, and we're going to save that into the database. And then we can just return the new user that we created. Okay, let's give that a try now. And we are getting an error. Okay, right. Forgot this piece of code. Okay, we're good now. Let's run this again. Oh, okay. We probably want to connect and create a schema before we start using it. Okay, let's create our user. Let's call him Johnny. Okay, looks like it worked. Cool. Let's test this out. Make sure it passes the test. Awesome. Okay, next thing we need is we can send a GET request to API/users to list all of the users. Okay, so app.get API users. And I think we can just do a find on an empty find on the user schema. So what we can do is find, this will find all of them, and then we can get the results and just return them. And that should be it. Okay, so let's give this a try. Okay, and we have a bunch of test users because FreeCodeCamp automatically creates users when it's doing its testing. So that's why we see all of this stuff. But we can also see Philly for decoding, Johnny. Okay, so looks like it worked. We're good to go. Okay, and it returns an array. Yes, because the user's object is an array. And okay, let's test this out now. Okay. All right, now we need to handle posting an exercise. So we want to do app.post API/users. Okay. So this is the ID, description, 50 minutes. Okay, this is what it looks like. You might not be able to see it from my face, but there's the description, the duration, and the date. Okay. So what do we want to do? We want to add this exercise into the database. So first of all, we're going to need to create a schema for the exercises. And this should be straightforward. Okay, we're gonna need to create a new we're gonna need to create a new schema. Okay, we're gonna need the user ID. That part, definitely. We're gonna need the description. And that part as well. And we're gonna need the duration. And that's gonna be a number. And we're also gonna need the date. And that is going to be is the date optional? I think it might be optional. Okay, so that's optional, so not required, and by default it's just going to be it's going to be, you know, the current date. Okay, so let's populate this exercise object. So first of all, the user ID is the ID that we provided, and then so user ID is the user ID that we provided. The description is and the duration is okay. And if a date was supplied, then we can use that date. Otherwise, we can just leave the date out and it'll default to the current date. Okay, so if we have a date, then we'll add a date parameter. Otherwise, it'll default to the current date. Okay, cool. So now we can just okay, so now we have our new exercise, and we can save that new exercise. Okay, and then we can return the result. Well, what does the result look like? The user object with the okay, so we actually have to fetch, since we need to return the user object, we'll actually need to find that user first. Okay, then let's not worry about error handling. Okay, if we found the user, then we can save the exercise, and now we can return that user object with the exercise information added on. Okay, so it's just gonna look like this. Username equals user found dot username, and then now the add on the exercise information. And duration equals new exercise dot duration. Now the date. Okay, I think it will create the, yeah, so it'll have a date, because when we create the exercise model and we don't pass in a date, it'll default to the today's date. So we have a date there, so we can do that. But we can't pass it a date object. We're gonna have to I think we're gonna have to convert it to a date string. I hope that works. Cannot read properties of null reading ID. Okay, let's add some error handling. What? Okay, maybe we just had to add error handling into it. But okay, that's odd. So it seems to work. Let's try it with no date. Okay, also seems to work. So I guess you have to add error handling, otherwise it doesn't work. Is that the case? That's very odd if it is. Yeah, maybe you do. Okay. Anyways, it's not a bad idea to have error handling, so just ensure that you have that. Okay. Cool. So that's that. Okay, now we make a GET request to this route to get the full exercise log of any user. So gives the user object with a count representing the number of exercises, and then a log with all of the exercises. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so first we need to find that user. So it's our user ID. We want to find that user. Okay, and let's just start building up the response here. Okay, so find the user by the ID. Then we're not saving anything anymore. Okay, then we also need to find all of their exercises. Okay, by the username, right? Okay, then exercise model dot find. We want to find all the exercises with this username. And then Okay, then we want to add the exercise into the log, and we also want to add a count. And then we can return that. Okay, let's let's just see what happens. Logs. Sorry, the exercise model doesn't have the username. The exercise model has the user ID. Okay, so we want to search by user ID. That's why it wasn't working. Silly mistake by me. Okay, so this is the log, the count, everything. Okay, all right, I think it's working. The date property of any object in the log array should be a string. Okay, so we're gonna need to make sure that every date in each of these exercises is a date string. Okay. So all right, so we can just return an object. So description stays the same. Duration stays the same, and then we just take the date and we convert it to a date string. Okay, I think that will work. Okay, from to now so it's a date string as it should be. Now all we need to do is to add these optional from, to, and limit parameters. Okay, from and to are in YYMMDD. Okay. So so the limit is gonna be dot Okay, this is a query parameter this time. And then the 2 and then the from. Okay. Limit is an integer, and the other 2 are strings. So if we have a limit parameter, then we want to convert it to an integer. Cool. Now, so instead of finding by the user ID, we're going to be having a much more complicated query. So now this query object is going to have a limit, a to, and a from, and they're all going to be optional. Basically, you can kind of look into the Mongoose DB documentation for how this is structured, but to filter by a specific parameter, you need to add either a greater than or equal to or a less than or equal to parameter. So okay, if we have a from parameter, then okay, if we have either a from or a to parameter, then we need to have a date key in there. Because within this date filter, we're going to add a GTE and an LTE parameter. Okay, now from here, if we have the from parameter, then the date has to be greater than or equal to that from parameter. And then similarly for the to parameter, the query object, the date needs to be less than or equal to the to parameter. And that should work. So at this point, we are able to find the exercises within a given date range, and we also want to add a limit. So we can what we can actually do is we can chain these different operators, and then execute it at the end. So it'll look like this instead. And do I have any errors here? I might. Okay, and this is from that. All right. So I think that this is going to work, and we can test it out a bit. Seems to be working. Let's give it a try. Awesome. There we go. All right, guys. So that was the solution to the exercise tracker project from the FreeCodeCamp backend development and APIs course. I hope that you found this helpful. It was kind of tricky. I made a bunch of silly mistakes, but that's part of the process of problem solving and writing code. So if you like this video, please like the video. If you want to see more, go ahead and give me a subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.